Hi, everybody. Welcome to welcome to MSP Business School. Now you got me all flustered, Tim. After doing that intro 145 times, I just stumbled. But anyway, guys, this is the fun part of podcasting. It's real, it's raw, and here we are. But my name is Brian Doyle, and as always with me, I've got Tim McNeil, who's apparently now broadcasting everything that we don't want to hear across his spectrum. But Tim, other than being a thorn in my side, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How about you?
Cannot complain. And we're excited to be back here again. We've got another great guest joining us from ConnectWise today. And we're always excited when we can talk to some of the vendors out in the market space and understand what's going on. But we especially like, the vendors that are coming in that are actually educating the community. And with that, I'd like to introduce Aaron Boone. He's the senior business consultant for ConnectWise, and his focus is really around finance, operations, and strategy. So hopefully Aaron will share a little bit about that and how you can leverage some of that intel in his mind. And with that, I want to say welcome, Aaron. Great to have you here.
Yeah, good
awesome.
to have you
here. Yeah, Brian, Tim, thank you for the introduction, and thank you both for the opportunity to join the MSP Business School.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to come into our unprofessional start, Aaron. I blame it all on Tim. But with that, we love to kick things off with first learning a little bit about how our guests ended up in the crazy world of MSP. So maybe tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. It's a fun journey, that's for sure. So going a little bit back, but prior to the MSP background. So my background was in hospitality. I went to the University of Florida here in Florida, a couple hours north of where I am in Tampa. Did an undergrad degree in business management, and then took a year to 2 years off trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and decided that working in hospitality, specifically I worked for Outback Steakhouse kind of on a management track, and decided I want to go back to school. And I've always had a love for sports. So I thought, hey, sports management, let's give that a shot. So I worked on a sports management master's degree, which was awesome. Loved it. Turned that into an internship actually here in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, which is the home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And worked for the building for a year as an intern, and then turned that into a job working in the food service side of the house for the former food service company there. And actually had quite a range of experiences. One, and I'll show you a fun little prop I found, is actually my badge from Super Bowl. And I think that's
very nice.
41 or 42. Don't quote me on the number, but
that's
worked
cool.
the Super Bowl, experience of a lifetime. A lot of good and bad things I learned there, but something I'll treasure forever. Ultimately there, I decided I wanted to change and went back to school to work on an MBA here at USF, the University of South Florida in Tampa. And about a year or so into that, ventured off to the career fair and found this company called ConnectWise, and looked at the website and couldn't tell you a thing about what they did, but sounded pretty cool, and hopped on board in support in 2011. Mm-hmm. And fast forward a year later, I finished the MBA up and was again looking around for what the next step would be, and had a conversation with Arnie Bellini, a name I'm sure you're all familiar with, former CEO of the company. And he had a vision of me joining the consulting arm of the business, which now we call more product consulting. Mm-hmm. So spent about, it will be a little over 6 years roughly doing that. So I did manage implementations, re-implementations, any kind of one-off consulting you can think of was what I did there. And then in about 2018 was when the acquisition of HTG by ConnectWise happened. And at that point, there were some roles that were opening up as a business consultant, working with a lot of the folks who are still around to this day in what's now called Evolve. So I hopped on board there, and that's where I transitioned a bit from doing a lot less product consulting, I'll say, even now, and more of true business consulting around some of that strategy consulting you mentioned, finance consulting, and then also the peer group facilitation.
That's fantastic. Yeah, look, we were talking a little bit before we started, and it's one theme that we have heard time and time again, whether it's somebody who's in the M&A world or just the MSPs that come on our show that are more mature. They became more mature because of being in a peer group and or business coach. A lot of them, they'll have a combination of being in the peer group and a formal business coach. And one of those two or both that really got them over that first ceiling, that 1.5, and that second ceiling, which oftentimes is in that 3 to 3.5, right? So
Yep.
that's very cool. Very
It's
cool.
the number one catalyst we hear out there in the marketplace all the time.
Yeah.
It's, my business changed when I got involved with a strategist and a peer group.
Yep, 100%. A catalyst, an accelerant. I think those are two words that I hear quite a bit. And it's awesome to hear.
That with a dash
that
of
impact.
accountability, because a lot of these guys
Yeah.
need a boss,
Yes.
even though they're the boss, right?
Absolutely. That's part of what you find. The ones who succeed the most within a peer group recognize that, and they humble themselves and are willing to go above and beyond and accept, the feedback and some of the criticism at times
Yeah.
that hopefully you can grow and mature from.
Yeah. Well, with you being a part of Evolve, and specifically being a part of Evolve One, I know that there's been some changes that have happened specifically back in September, and some new initiatives that you're looking to kind of set forth in 2013. Wow. I'm going to fast forward 10 years, 2023 and beyond. Can you take us through some of the new initiatives and what you're looking to do?
Yeah, so I kind of got thrown into this Evolve One program. So just to back up for a little bit, we kind of have three flagship programs, I'll call them. There's Evolve 3, which is kind of the classic version of HTG, or Evolve, excuse me, what was HTG. There's Evolve 2, which is kind of a step below that. And what that is essentially the members meet in larger groups, and there's a lot more hands-on learning, if you will.
Mhm.
And Evolve 3 is kind of the program that sits at the bottom of that. And in the past was a little bit more hands-on, but what's unique about it is it only meets virtually once a month, whereas the other programs meet on a quarterly cadence in person.
Mhm.
So it's back to the changes that you just hinted at there, Tim. So what we really looked at in 2022 was trying to come up with a scalable offering that we could grow to several hundred members. Let's say there's lots of numbers that have been thrown at me on where we want to go with it, but we've been below 100 for as far as I've known it, and we really had to take a step back and say, how are we going to scale this to be able to deliver a peer group program for 100 plus members? And what we decided on is we switched from having individual group meetings that were very similar to the Evolve 2 and Evolve 3 program to having a single monthly meeting that all the groups would attend virtually again. And for the first half of the meeting, what we opted to do was bring in some subject matter experts. So we're big on the learning, as you hinted at earlier, Brian. And what we didn't want it to be is me, the facilitation team, coming on and trying to tell you things on how you should improve your business. We wanted to tap into the power of the community. So every month we have a feature speaker who's aligned with a specific topic for about 45 minutes. There's a little bit of time for Q&A. And then the back half of this meeting, we split everyone up into breakout rooms, and they meet with their individual groups of usually about 6 to 10 members and go through how was the last month, what are you struggling with, how can we help one another, and that's essentially that 2-hour meeting.
Awesome.
It goes by really quick, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's a lot of information you're trying to get out to the masses in that period of time. So, but it's great how you're continuing the education in different areas, right? Whether it's sales, operations, or service side. I mean, all areas that it doesn't matter what size MSP you are, you can always be better somewhere. And being a part of that peer group it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, if you surveyed all the MSPs, they'd all say, yep, if I could be a little better at any one of those things, they'd love for that. And that's what we strive to deliver on.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It doesn't take much change to really push the needle, right? The problem that most MSPs have is with focus. It's implement, I know I need to do this, but I also need to do this and this, and everything gets partially implemented. So, having a peer group, having some accountability put into it really helps people kind of focus, take one, go to the next one once you complete and succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And accountability, it's a word we use quite often in the program, and within all the peer group programs, we try to bake in as much as we can. How we try to address that in the Evolve One program is we have either a full accountability group of all the members of each individual group, and it's usually by choice if they want to go that route, or what we typically find is we'll split them up into groups of 2 or 3, and they're charged with meeting in between those monthly meetings and just having a conversation, seeing where they can help and checking on the progress of those goals that they've laid out and helping to drive one another forward.
It's awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I guess, from going back from your HTG days now to Evolve, right? And all the changes that are happening. First off, it's unbelievably impressive what you all have done for the community in general. What would you say as an MSP who is not in a peer group right now, and they're looking to find that first one that they go to? What would they be looking for, or what would be different about Evolve?
So what I would say,
just to clarify, that is a softball.
Thanks. All right, I see it coming. Let me see how I do with this one.
Yeah.
So there's, like you said, there's a lot of peer groups that have been around. There's some new ones coming out here now and very soon, I believe. What I think sets Evolve apart is we're not just totally focused on the business and how do you run a better business. We also try to factor in how do you become a better person? What are your life goals? So I'm going to say equal, but there is also a focus on what do you want to achieve with your life professionally and personally? Where do you want to go? And how does this business feed into whatever it is you want to achieve? So I think that sets us apart, that we really try to find some kind of balance there and make sure that one isn't overriding the other and becoming unhealthy, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's stay on that for a moment, because one thing about this industry is this is an industry of burnout, right? You see a lot of owners that burn out on this. Everybody speaks about work-life balance, but everybody struggles in doing it. And some of that is the 24/7 nature of technology, and most of us who have been in the MSP space also wanting to please our customers, right? We have a service-minded focus. How are you guys, delve in a little bit into some of the things that you're talking about to ensure that these guys don't burn out to the same degree that they've been up to date? Because, we've seen some great leaders exit the industry for no other reason that they just can't take it anymore, and it hurts the industry when that happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I would say there are just a couple things that come to mind. One, just the idea of work-life balance. I'm not one of the folks who thinks that it's a myth and it doesn't exist. I think there at times can be a balance. I like to think of it more as like a pendulum that swings back and forth, and you need to find some intentionality to try to drive it so it's not too far off in one direction or another, too much work or too much life, because you're going to find that things just start to fall apart at some point. So what I would say, how we try to address that is, one, we do quite a bit with trying to help some of our members, or all the members really, recognize that they have to build a leadership team around them, and they have to empower the people who work for them or around them to be able to also take some of that load off of themselves. I've never, full disclosure, I've never owned a business yet. That is something I'm striving for as a life goal. So I can only empathize with what I've seen, not having personally lived it, but it's a lot of pressure on you with all the day-to-day stress. You mentioned customers, wanting, their technology work 24/7, your employees having their own life struggles, and then think about the last 2 years, the pandemic thrown in on top of that, and all the stresses that happened there. So what we found is the companies that had leadership teams and had done intentional planning with how they were developing those next level leaders in their companies are some of the ones who did, one, they find a better balance between that life work. And then two, they've done better, I would say, over the last 2 years with surviving the challenging times that the pandemic posed.
Yeah, and I don't think you can diminish what the value of a good leadership team can do for work-life balance and to grow your business. When I was a kid, I read Jack Welch's book. He was the former CEO of GE, and he used to believe that we should only be in an industry if we're number one or we're number two. but he also believed that he is the least smart person in every room he should walk into, because he should be hiring people that are smarter than him at a slice of the business that they then own, to make that part of the business better. And that was something that resonated with me, because you really do need different talents to round it out. And if you bring in those different talents, usually most of these guys get burnout when they're trying to do something that they're not equipped to do. Right. All of us have a talent. Most of these guys are technical leaders. Take that. We talk about it a lot in the show, and they all of a sudden become responsible for sales. Well, that's foreign to them many times. So thus that becomes the area that burns them out, because they're trying to educate themselves to pass that education down and not be found out as not the expert to that resource.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a hamster wheel, if you will, of activity that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, that is a huge leadership lesson that I think that these successful MSP owners hopefully find sooner rather than later. And once they can get over that, that's where I think they start to, accelerate the growth of the business, and things really transform for themselves.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, one thing that I noticed at IT Nation, and, Brian and I actually spent a fair amount of time together at IT Nation, and just talking to people that we know that are within Evolve, and, oftentimes talking with a group that were in the same, group of people that were in the same peer group, you could tell that, yes, obviously talking about work, talking about what they do on a daily basis, but there was, I would say, as much, if not more, of an emphasis on what they wanted to do in 2 to 4 to 5 years personally. I mean, those conversations those were the ones that really dominated those talk tracks is what dominated the conversations, whether it was Brian, the one person who is getting into flying planes, and that was a constant theme that I noticed at IT Nation as we were talking to different people. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we are really big on is planning and trying to challenge members to think, what is it you want to achieve, again, professionally with the business, but too personally, in a 3, 5, 10 years out. And the collective power of the group is to help that individual figure out where's the synergy, I guess, or the convergence of those plans. Yeah. So, hey, if you think you're going to go off and fly planes, well, here's what you need to start working on with the business to get it to a point where you could exit, sell, whatever that exit strategy might be, to be able to support that. So, yeah.
And I think a lot of MSP owners don't realize that you should be thinking about the exit almost at day one, because if you're not thinking about what that exit might look like, it's tough to get the guidance there, and it's tough to be real about how it's going to get you there successfully. So these are all considerations to both work-life balance, making sure you maximize the investment of the time that you're doing, because if you're going to get that burnout, you better have some reward, right, at the other end, and really working through that. And we've seen those peer groups almost become confessionals, right, for the leaders to really feel like in a safe room they can say the things that they want to say out loud, but they might not say to their wife. They're certainly not going to say in front of their employees.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think every facilitator of a peer group likely has many stories of, how the group feels almost like a focus group of sorts, consoling one another on things, very serious at times, but you just don't know how do you get through whatever that situation is. And that power of being able to, sit in a room with other individuals who potentially have been through that scenario and can provide some kind of guidance. It's kind of like a cheat code at times, is how I think of it too.
Yeah, completely.
Well, it's definitely a cheat code, right? Because you're looking at people that are in varying levels of the career, their arc, and you're able to learn from what they do. And then those that are at the top are then, evolving into being the next set of facilitators and really helping those groups move forward. It's amazing to see how that community kind of, rises people up, the old adage, right? What's it? All boats must rise together or whatever. I always get that one wrong, but all tides rise the boats, whatever. But, the point being is it's great to see in those groups as well, how these people, as they evolve, they're able to give back. And I think that's a big part we've seen through the community structure of peer groups as well. Just the pure giving back and the way these people really become, friends is easy to say, but really a part of each other's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Friends. I don't know if there's a stronger word you can think of, but yeah, there's so many relationships that I've built with some folks who were MSP business owners, now have transitioned out, and now are resources I can tap on the shoulder for any number of things. And a lot of the members I find that as well. So yeah, it's amazing.
But I think as we were talking earlier, you've got some events coming up, right, Tim? We were talking about that. I think you're involved as well with Evolve One.
Yeah, so we've got our Evolve One meeting, our Evolve One cohort that meets monthly. We actually just had our January meeting last week, actually. But what we have coming up is our Q1 meeting for Evolve 2 and Evolve 3. What we've also got coming on up here is we've got a number of role-based peer groups that have come online in the last couple of years. So just to give you a sense of those, we have a group dedicated for, we call it Service SEPG for short, stands for Service Exec Peer Group. We have had a CFO group that now is up to, I think, 3 or 4 groups that's going to be meeting in about 2 weeks that I'm also a facilitator for. And then we've got a brand new COO group that is coming online. That's led by Kip, program manager there. It's going to be meeting virtually for the first quarter of the year, I believe, and then hopefully Q2 they'll be in person somewhere. So yeah, we follow a quarterly cadence, like I kind of hinted at earlier. And February is when we hit the ground running, and we've got all these programs that are meeting in person around the country. We've got the Q1 meeting for most of the groups is in Phoenix.
Nice. Very good.
And it's great to see that it's evolving into the roles-based piece of it as well, because there does need to be communities for these different individuals that hold different roles. So you can kind of filter out some of the noise that kind of comes out of the general discussion as well, right? And really get people focused on what they need to achieve. It's pretty cool that that's starting to become a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had the requests have been there for quite a while, and so getting to the point where you have critical mass that hey, we can create a group of individuals who want to meet has been nice to see. Yeah. Next up, I can see project management being one, and that's at least one that comes to mind. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and I think it also goes back to something we had referenced before. The more mature companies, the way they become mature and the way they grow and separate themselves is by having those good leadership teams, right? And stands a reason that if you're a CFO or a COO, you're probably a part of that leadership team. So it makes sense to build them up, because then they can build a team underneath them, and then everybody's better for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's that rising tide raises all ships.
Thank you. See, there it is. I'm gonna have to cut that part out of this thing so I can finally learn it. or just stop trying to use it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, I don't know if you have any other closing comments you'd like to share. I know we're getting near the end of our time today, but really appreciate all this great insight into how the peer groups are evolving over at ConnectWise.
Yeah, all I would say is, Evolve peer groups, great programs. We're expanding the offerings. There's also any number of groups out there, and I think we started off kind of hinting that that we hear pretty much fairly anecdotally, I guess, that peer groups are the thing that can accelerate and help a business owner achieve those breakthroughs they're looking for. So whether it's Evolve peer groups or someone else, I would definitely challenge your listeners to take a look at some of the offerings out there and kick the tires if you can get to one and just test it out, see if it's for you or not. But wherever you land, I think peer groups for sure are kind of a secret recipe to success that can help a business, get over the, whatever those challenges are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, Aaron, we're coming to the end of this podcast. I just want to thank you for coming on. We had an opportunity to meet after Rob's presentation at IT Nation, and had a couple opportunities to talk since then as well. So it's good having you on. For anybody who's listening, you can find this podcast or any other podcast from MSP Business School anywhere that you can find or download podcasts, to include YouTube. So with that, I guess Brian, it was good seeing you again. Aaron, again, great having you on. And we look forward to the next one.
Thanks,
Thank
Aaron.
you.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you both for the opportunity and look forward to working with you guys here as the time goes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.